Hi there, this is Allison with Let's Go Travel Tips. Today we've got COVID health protocols on the Princess website for sailings from the United Kingdom, for sailings from Europe, as well as sailings from Australia. So I'm going to take you through what those updates are, as well as we have lots of other updates and useful information that I think will help a lot of us who are hoping to get to cruise soon, or maybe even if you're on a cruise ship now. So first of all, I would like to welcome all of our Let's Go family members. It is such a pleasure to be here with you. So thank you for coming and for everything that you do to make this such a wonderful Let's Go family. Also, welcome to everyone who is new. We are really glad that you found us, and we hope that you'll stay with us. We've been waiting for you, and so we're glad you're here. If anyone hasn't subscribed to our channel yet, will you please subscribe? It will help us out, as well as I think it's going to be a really wonderful thing in your life, because you're going to make new friends. You're going to get all the information that you need if you're thinking about cruising, or just like to even dream about cruising or know what's going on the cruise ships. So first of all, like I said, we've got these COVID health protocol updates. And so I'm just going to go through the highlights so that you know what has changed a little bit, so that you can be prepared when you go on a cruise, or if you're thinking about booking a cruise, you'll know if you want to go through that. So first of all, let's start with sailings from the United Kingdom. And I should also add, today is Wednesday, May 18th, and these are all dated May 17th. I think they were late yesterday because I checked them a couple of times a day and they were not there yesterday afternoon, my time. So first of all, with sailings from the UK, they talk about how important it is. And so remember this, if you are sailing from the United Kingdom, everyone who is age 18 and over needs to either be fully vaccinated and have received your vaccine within the last 90 days, or if it's, not 90 days, 9 months, 270 days. So if it has been longer than 9 months or 270 days since you received your COVID vaccine, you've got to have a booster. If you don't have that, you've got to have an exemption. The way that you get an exemption with Princess is you just call them on the phone and talk to them. They say that they are managing a small number of exemptions. The rule that they are keeping to on sailings from the United Kingdom is to have at least 95% of all the crew and passengers vaccinated. And the crew is definitely, I bet you it's 100% vaccinated. I've read in other places that the crew is all vaccinated. And so anyway, they've got that. Then they also say that if you have children who are ages between 12 and 18, that they need to be vaccinated. So they don't need to have a booster, but they do need to be vaccinated or else have that exemption, as well as children who are under 5. They don't require They clearly don't require a vaccination because there's not one that's approved for them, but they are also not required to take a pre-cruise COVID test. It says children who are ages 5 to 11 can sail if they are either fully vaccinated or if they can show proof of a negative PCR test done within 3 days of embarkation. I know all of that's a little bit confusing, so if you're traveling with children, you might want to look these up on your own, or call Princess and make sure that you have got it straight so that you've got everything in order. The other thing that's really important to remember, and they had not talked about before in their protocols, we just knew we weren't hearing anything about a second booster, but here they talk about it. They say there is currently no requirement for guests to receive a second booster dose, nor is there a requirement for guests ages 17 and under to receive the initial booster dose, regardless of how long it's been since they received their vaccine. The next thing, like I said, they do a few exemptions. And then finally, everyone needs to be tested except for those children who are under the age of 5 in order to get on the ship. So please remember that whether you're vaccinated and you've got a booster, either one of those, you can have 3 days to do your antigen test or 3 days to do a PCR test. If you're not vaccinated or you're not fully vaccinated and you've got that exemption, you need to do a PCR test within 3 days. That's what's required. They do remind everyone that there is Testing available at the port for $60 per person. They also remind everybody about the tests here that like you can order from eMed and do with someone, healthcare professional on the video call while you're doing it. So these are also really handy for that. We've had lots of people. In my video yesterday, I mentioned we had a Let's Go family member that lives in the UK talk about some testing options. So if you missed that, just listen to that video. Then the next thing that I want to make sure that everybody knows is what the requirements are for people that have got that exemption or for the children who are not vaccinated. Because if you are, if children under the age of 5, as well as children who are 5 to 11, if they're not vaccinated, they have to follow all of the rules for people who are not vaccinated, clearly. And so, first of all, like I said, the children under 5 don't need to do that antigen test, but everybody over 5 is going to have to do the PCR test within 3 days. And then you've also going to have a test done at embarkation at the terminal, and that is going to cost $60. And then it says we must provide testing information and reporting to the destinations that we visit. Guests will be responsible for the cost of testing and administration in most destinations. And then those are $10 each. So every time other than that embarkation test that you have to get tested on the ship is $10. And so just remember that. And it also reminds, it says you may not be permitted ashore in all ports, and if allowed, may only go ashore through shore excursions sold by Princess. It says self-exploration or participation in shore excursions not sold by Princess will not be permitted. And then at disembarkation, you might have to take a test then as well. And then in the United Kingdom, as in Europe, if you can show proof that your flight leaves on the same day that the ship brings you back to port for disembarkation, Princess will cover that test for you. And so you can either do it in your room with one of these to get that test to fly to your home country again. For example, it is required to fly into the United States, as well as you can use the test that Princess will do for you. So that's everything. If you've got questions, just ask me. Now for Europe. Europe also reminds everyone that if you are 18 or older, you have to have your vaccine within 9 months or 270 days, or you have to have a booster if it's been longer than that, or you have to have an exemption. When it comes to everyone else, it says they are sailing also in Europe, like I said, with at least 95% of the guests 12 and older have to be fully vaccinated. And so they are allowing exemptions, as they are in the UK, for people who are 12 and older who are not vaccinated. And so you just call Princess for that as well. And they support it for people who are not vaccinated due to medical, religious, and other guest considerations. Children under 5 may be booked and are not required to take a pre-cruise COVID test. Children who are ages 5 to 11 can sail if they are fully vaccinated or show proof of a negative PCR test done within 3 days of embarkation. And then they also have to follow the rules, of course, of unvaccinated guests, which is just the same. Those rules for unvaccinated guests are the same in Europe as they are in the United Kingdom. However, in Europe, they remind everybody that based on what the port requirements are of every port that you go to, some places have the same requirement as the ports that Princess embarks from, which those ports are Athens, Barcelona, Copenhagen, and Rome. And their requirements, as we know, are that you have to have your vaccine at least within 9 months or have a booster. But they said that some ports are much tighter, like within 90 days of having your vaccine, you need to have a booster. And so they just remind everybody that you might not be able to get off the ship in all of the ports if you are not that up to date on your vaccines, as well as you might have to have extra testing. So that applies to everybody. And so they also, in the protocols for Europe, talk about the fact that nobody is required to have that second booster, and that children who guests who are under 17 and under, you don't even have to have the initial booster. It's just for people who are 18 and older have to have that booster. Now, in Europe, you get to have, whether you are just vaccinated or vaccinated with a booster, you get to have 3 days for your antigen test and 3 days for your PCR test if that's what you choose. And then then if you've got an exemption or not vaccinated, you'll get to have 3 days for your PCR. The exception to that is sailings from Greece. And in Greece, you have to have your test within 1 day, whether it's antigen or PCR, it is within 1 day. And if I were going to sail out of Athens, I would be looking for, well, actually, if I were sailing out of Athens, I would take one of these with me to do for each of us, because it is so easy to do. All you have to do is have the internet, and you can do it, or you can just use the phone service on your phone. Just data on your phone and do it. But we had our Let's Go family member let us know. Her name is Alice, and she was so kind to let us know. They embarked on Rio Princess this last Sunday. I think it was Saturday or Sunday in Athens. And she said there were 800 people embarking the ship that day who had to be tested. So the lines were astronomical. It took forever. And so just to avoid those lines, I would either figure out where in Athens I was going to be tested or take this along. And I would definitely take that along because it's just so much easier. So I just wanted to give you all a heads up about that. Like everywhere else, masks are recommended, but they are not required. And then just like in the UK, if you can show proof that your flight is the same day that you disembark, Princess will pay for that test. So you can do that. Or if you just want to be prepared. And let me tell you, so a lot of people have said that when Princess does the test, often they will do it the day before disembarkation so that you can hop off and then get to the airport and get your test. But if there is any question about it, like, do this so you're not waiting around. Okay, because you don't want to miss your flight or miss your transfer just because you weren't done with getting tested. Now we're going to move on to sailings from Australia, and we are so excited because cruising is starting up really soon now down in Australia. And so when I initially saw that there was updates, I was like, oh, do you think it matters yet? And I thought, well, yes, it does, because they're going to start sailing down in Australia really very soon. And so I just wanted to remind everybody that they say that they are also sailing with 95% of all of the guests on board vaccinated, and you need to have your they just say your vaccine within 14 days of sailing. It says guests who have medical contraindications to the vaccine and children who are under the age of 12 who are not fully vaccinated are permitted to travel, but you've got to have an exemption. Fully vaccinated guests have to show proof at embarkation, if you all didn't know that. And you might recall also that when you are going through and checking everything in your Medallion Class app, you have to attest to the fact that you're vaccinated. And then also before you've got to show that proof of vaccination again at the port. So not only do you have to attest to it in your app, but you also have to show that in embarkation. They are also allowing a few exemptions there in Australia. They say very few. And it says, based on the current Australian requirements for cruising, all guests will be required to present a negative COVID test before you board. And so you have to show, if you're doing the antigen, it has to be within 24 hours. I've noticed they call that the RAT in Australia. And if you're going to do a PCR, it has to be within 72 hours. So pay attention to the number of hours, because they're not saying 1 day and 3 days. They're saying hours. So make sure that you pay attention. It says guests who have been approved for a vaccination exemption will also be advised of additional protocols upon arrival at the terminal. So just remember that. Somebody was asking me the other day, yes, you can book back-to-back cruises, and there is going to be testing in between the two back-to-backs. So remember that. And it's really interesting to me because in some places we're hearing of testing between back-to-backs and not in others. I find that really interesting. And then it also, I'll tell you that in a minute. So they also have the reminder in Australia that you might not be allowed to go into port in all of the areas if you are not vaccinated. And so if you're going to go ashore at all, you're going to have to go with a Princess excursion there in Australia. And then finally, if you are sailing there in Australia and you need a COVID test to return to your home country, they are going to supply that if you can show that your flight leaves the same day as embarkation. So it's really very straightforward. You will notice it sounds like Australia is still operating on the honor system with those negative COVID tests. They list that you can get them at your grocery store, at all these different places, do the test, and then you just attest that it's negative in the app. And it sounds really straightforward. And so that's how they're doing it there. And so now we're going to just go ahead and talk about some updates that I hope are helpful for you all. So speaking of testing, our Let's Go family member, Alam, and also Brian have let me know, and I really appreciate the update, that yesterday the government in the United States announced that people can order more COVID tests if you want, and you can get 8 more. And so if you want to get any more COVID tests for free, it's covidtests.gov. And I'll try to remember to put that below this video, but it's really easy, and you just go on there and order more tests. Now, keep in mind that you can't just do one of those tests to be able to get on the ship, but they're really handy. Like, that's what we're going to use before we leave home, just to make sure that one of us isn't positive and doesn't know it. But I wanted to let you know that. And then we've also got our Let's Go family member, Ruth. She was really kind, and she said that she is using a place called Onboard COVID testing to have someone view her doing her COVID test so that she can get the results that she needs to board the ship. Now, I looked it up, and it's just onpoint-testing.com, and you can like buy a test through them and then have them proctor it, or you can just, I think it's $23.99. You just sign up and they will proctor you doing your test so that you can have, you know, like someone on the video call with you while you do the test, so that you've got the results you need. And so just take a look at that. I started to look at that. There's so many different kinds of tests. Everybody has lots of kinds of tests. So just take a look at that website, because it's looking like that is a really good option if you're trying to find a place. So thank you very much, Ruth, for letting us know about that place. Just a quick note from my video yesterday. I mentioned how important it is to have travel insurance when you travel. And I'm not going to give anybody travel insurance counsel. That's not my job here. And so I want to make that clear. But I would say definitely do have travel insurance to cover everything that you want covered. And like one person said, do I need a second plan if I already have a vacation protection plan? Here's the deal. You need to look at the plan you've got and see how comfortable you are with what the limits are. And then you'll decide if you need to get another policy, a secondary policy or an umbrella policy, something that will give you more coverage. And so that is just my counsel to you. Look and see what the different coverage amounts are. Like, make sure that how much they cover for medical you feel comfortable with. And if you think, well, maybe I would feel better if it was a little bit more, then find a different policy, get another policy. But it's really just important, and different people are comfortable with different things. And so just kind of look it over. Don't be somebody that just buys a policy and never looks at it. You don't want to do that. Don't want to do that. You need to know what's in your policy. And like, I always have our phone number in my phone that I need to call if something happens. And I've never had to use it so far, but if something does happen, I want to have it rather than trying to figure out where to call. And so just keep that in mind with your insurance. The next thing, this is just a really quick update, but a really nice family member, Larry, he said that he was on the phone with Princess and got a great person who was helping him with his medallion app. And that guy told him that when you are in a club class mini suite or club class suite, whichever you're staying in there, you can not only just go to any main dining room that you want to, and, you know, just be seated. Well, you go to club class dining and you're seated right away. If you want to go to another dining room, you can, but you can also go into a specialty dining restaurant and not even have a reservation and be seated. And so I thought that that was a perk that was worth mentioning. So anyone that's in those club class or the suites or mini suites, that might be really nice to know. And on a side note about dining, I was just reading through a bunch of comments, and apparently some people are having their dining reservations disappear in the Medallion Class app. And then someone commented that they now have twice as many reservations as they had before. And so just keep an eye on your app, because it sounds like funny things are happening there. And tomorrow I'll talk to you a little bit more about the Princess app and some updates that are supposed to be coming. Now, we have a really great Let's Go family member who has so kindly let us know what is going on. So he has been cruising over in sailings out of the UK, and they had a turnaround day in Southampton. So first of all, he was saying that for the turnaround, like for back-to-back in and out of Southampton, there was no testing. If you missed my video yesterday, there was back-to-back testing, or even like halfway through your 14-day cruise testing in on the Regal Princess in Europe. And so that's what I know about that. Anybody else that wants to share, we would love to hear from you about testing and about anything else you would like to share. So currently on the Sky Princess right now, there are just under 2,400 passengers. You might recall that her capacity is like 3,660, I believe. And so I'm not sailing anywhere near capacity. And so I thought that was nice. He was kind enough to tell me some things that are just a little bit different because, you know, so often once you've been on a couple of cruises since the restart, you'll see that things are sometimes a little bit different depending on where you're sailing, as well as a little bit different to how things were before COVID. But you know what? I should tell you right off, like all the good parts are there. It is still glorious to sail on the water. It is still beautiful. It is so beautiful to be out on the water. The whole experience is just as extraordinary as it has always been. It is still spectacular to pull up to ports and have the lovely opportunity of seeing places and getting back on board and thoroughly enjoying. So none of that has changed. So don't worry about that. A few things that they mentioned though is, you know, a lot of people, you know, we hear that masks are recommended, but it turns out not very many people are wearing them on the ship. They said that the signs are still in the elevator, like on all of our cruises since the restart, there's been a sign in the elevator saying like 6 people is the maximum. Those signs are still there, but for the most part, people aren't listening. And even in the dining room, like the salt and the pepper and the butter are still on, like they're just left on the table there for you. And after, you know, you eat with some of the same people again, you just get used to that. And they have a nice little sugar bowl that, as he described it, I remember going to my grandmother's house and she had the kind that you have the little, yeah, it's like you don't open it and like scoop out a bunch. It just has a little tube thing and you just get your sugar out. I remember her doing that. But they did see that all of like the handrails and everywhere like that are cleaned very frequently. You remember up on the pool deck, they've got the pizza place. You can put your own condiments on your pizza. And in the buffet, you can serve your tea and your coffee, your juice. Get those glasses of water to refill your water bottles. Don't put your water bottles under that little water spigot, but you can do that all on your own, it says. I added that. They didn't say that. And then they do have the hand washing station by the buffet, but a lot of people aren't using it. So now we're going to transition over. We're going to talk about let me tell you what's going on the Carnival Panorama right now. We've got our Let's Go family member, and she is on the Carnival Panorama right now, and I thought you would all enjoy knowing how things are going. First of all, she said that the embarkation was a little bit challenging. They had a DocGo antigen test appointment for 10 a.m., but because their check-in time was not until noon, they made them wait, which was something that surprised the testing staff. We could only get tested once inside the terminal. Once they did that, everything went really smoothly. She said they were led by the staff from one station to another. There was never any confusion, and the results came back in about 10 to 15 minutes, and they were able to just sit there in the benches in Carnival's air-conditioned terminal, she said. And she said from when they actually finally were able to enter until when they were on board was about 45 minutes. And so I know that when you book those DocGo appointments, they tell you to get the closest one to your embarkation time. And that's clearly what they did, but they just made them wait. And so just be prepared to wait. If the only test that's available is earlier, you'll just maybe have to wait. And you know what? I don't know if they do that on all ships or just on the Carnival ones. But anyway, I appreciated her letting us know. She said the Carnival Panorama appears to have over 4,000 guests. And so I looked that up, and it says the full capacity is 4,008 passengers. So it sounds like she is probably sailing at pretty close to capacity. The buffet is self-serve. She said that it's a limited variety of food and kind of boring. The staff is not encouraging people to wash their hands. She says food in the dining room was pretty average. They don't even offer a daily pasta dish on the dining room menu. And like you remember, Princess always offers that. However, the dining room is still better than the buffet. She said that the dining room menu for the Indian food is absolutely delicious. And she said that the pasta bar appears to have a kitchen a kitchen staffing issue, not knowing what to do, as it should take a long time to get out bowls of pasta. And so, we have been hearing a lot about the struggles that Carnival and several of the other cruise lines, and I would say Princess is included in that, the trouble that they're having getting enough crew. And so it sounds like that is what is going on there as well. And it sounds like, Cunard just is canceling some of the cruises of people that have booked because they're not able to get enough crew. So I think it's going to be really interesting going forward to see how the cruise shortage affects how many people can sail and just what the whole experience is. And so I look forward to hearing from you all on that. Anyway, she said the 24-hour pizza bar was delicious, and she said the ship games are mostly consisting of trivia. It's sure not like the quality of games we'd experienced on Princess. And she says they are not vaccinated. They had an exemption, but so they could not even go ashore unless on a Carnival excursion. They even tried, but she says they have an excursion booked for Cabo tomorrow. She didn't say where that was, but for Cabo, which would be today, because she sent me this last night, they do have a Princess excursion book. So hopefully she'll be able to go and she'll let us know. And they're really hoping that they can get to stay in port for shopping and dining. And so we'll just hear what they say. And then this is really helpful, you also. She says, I have the Verizon Travel Pass for calls and data in Puerto Vallarta, Mazatlan, and Cabo. So if anybody in the Let's Go family has any questions, you can ask and she'll answer. So if you've got any questions about that phone plan or anything like that, just ask. The next update I want to tell you about is the Caribbean Princess. Our Let's Go family member Sylvie said they are currently on the Caribbean Princess and was just diagnosed with COVID yesterday. So she just sent me this morning. So it would be yesterday on Tuesday that she was that she tested positive and was in quarantine. She says there seems to be a few of us, as there are room service trays in front of all the cabins with the quarantine poster. She did get to enjoy Princess Key before she got sick, had a wonderful day there. She said the food was delicious. And so she's supposed to be on a 14-day cruise. And they said that if she tests negative by the weekend and she feels better, that she can continue the cruise and enjoy it. And she said, at least I would get to enjoy half of it. And she pointed out that she says, I wore a mask almost all the time and have been vaccinated 3 times, which I'm guessing means that you're vaccinated with a booster. And so a window to what's going on the Caribbean Princess with one of our Let's Go family members. So if you've got any questions about any of this, just put them in the comments below, as well as if you can share any of your experiences or any tips or anything that you think would be helpful to other people. That would be wonderful as well. If there is a certain port or a destination or anything at all that you would like me to try to cover, please put that down there as well so that I don't miss something that someone needs to know about. I really appreciate you watching our videos, and if you appreciate them, would you please give this video a thumbs up? That really does help us out. I will be talking to you all again really soon. You all take really good care. God bless you. Love you. Bye-bye.